Welcome back to Kitchen Table Gaming, and by popular demand, here is my army showcase and tournament report. So this is from a recent 40-player tournament I attended a couple of weeks ago, and if you haven't seen the games yet, make sure to check them out in the link in the description. And just to give you some context, Ogre Kingdoms is not my main army. I usually play with orcs and goblins, and I started up this army for two reasons. One was that I needed a new painting hobby project, and I wanted to be able to spend more time per model, so the model count needed to be quite low. And the second reason was that I needed to have a real challenge also on the battlefield. So whenever I play any game, whether it's Last of Us, I always play on grounded difficulty. If I play Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm not quite done until I found all of the Korok seeds. So it was with this in mind that I started my Ogre Kingdoms army about a year ago, and I started painting and I started training just to see if it was possible to be competitive with what's possibly the worst army in the game. And here is the army list that I brought to the tournament. We will go through all of the choices in detail when we come to the army showcase. But let's jump right into the results. Again, if you haven't seen the games themselves, you can find them in the link in the description. So in my first game I had a massive 20-0 victory against the Dark Elves, and that put me right up on the top tables immediately. But I was super surprised because my opponent was the only other Ogre Kingdoms player out of the 40 players on the tournament, and we had a good battle where I won 16-4, and that actually left me on the top table of the tournament, where I faced my very best friend on the top table for the third game, and after a very tight game he came out of top and I fell down to table number 4, and that meant that I needed to face off against the Chaos Dwarves in game number 4, and this was also a tight game. I thought I would win bigger, but I won 11-9 in the end, so that left me still on table number 4 against the High Elves in the final game, where after a very hard fought battle the High Elves won. So I had a massive 4-16 loss in my final game. So I ended the tournament on 9th place, and this is something I'm super proud about, especially since my opponents came in 2nd, 3rd and on 4th place. So I couldn't have faced any harder opposition in this tournament. But what's even better is that when all the votes were cast, I came in very high on both best painted, best sportsman, and of course with my 9th place out of 40. So I took away the finest prize of them all, the highest reward, best overall, and this is of course something I am incredibly proud of, and this was the goal all along when I started my army. So with all of that in mind, let's move into my army showcase and the list review. And for each unit in my army, I will list how many points I scored in each game, and then talk briefly about what the purpose of the unit is and how it functions together with the rest of the army. So let's start with my Saber Tusks, and as you can see here, they didn't score a single point through the entire tournament, but the sole purpose of these units is to chaff enemy units so that I can ensure that my Death Star will get the charge off. This also works especially good together with the Arc Lightning Rod, so that I can chaff flying units, and this was probably one of the most valuable units in the army, and for 34 points that is an excellent choice. Next up is the Iron Guts Death Star, and this is really the hammer of my army. So I have 9 of them together with 2 Tyrants in the same unit, so this adds up to roughly 1000 points. They managed to score quite high in the first 2 games, but then it sort of tailored off a little bit, and I had 2 games where they almost didn't kill anything. On the other hand, they only died in one of the games and preserved a lot of points in that way because it's so expensive. One thing worth mentioning here is that I use Arc Lightning Rod on one of the Tyrants in this build, and I've never tried this before, so I really wanted to use the Arc Lightning Rod to be able to catch dragons and Death Stars in this tournament. The reason I put it on a Tyrant is that he is the only one with leadership 9 apart from the Hunter, and by putting the Tyrant in a Iron Gut unit he also gets Veteran, so I will have a leadership 9 rerollable to get Arc Lightning Rod off. Okay, next up are my Noblars, and they probably scored enough points in every game because they are so incredibly cheap. This is a 42 point unit and they held objectives in every single game, plus that they had this incredible luck against another Ogre Tyrant in game number 2, but that is an outlier. This is not supposed to happen. I would still consider Noblars to be a very good scoring unit because it's only 2 points per model, so I would definitely use those again. I usually play with skirmishing Noblar Trappers, but this is something I didn't have enough time to paint actually, but expect to see the Noblar Trappers in future games. And next up are my cannons, my iron blasters, and these are some of the best units in my army. So as you can see here, they scored quite a lot of points, especially in game number 1 against the Dark Elves and in game number 4 against the Chaos Dwarfs. So these are incredible units, cannons that can move around and shoot. They're also heavy chariots if something comes too close. So I would dare to say that if you want to play competitively with Ogre Kingdoms, I would definitely recommend having 2 of the Iron Blasters. And let's move on to one of the more controversial picks in my list, and that is my Hunter. And he's really in the list only for 2 reasons. One is that I really love the model and I wanted to add some flavor to the army. The second one is that I don't want to play with a spellcaster because I don't find it valuable enough in an Ogre Kingdoms army. The Slaughtermaster is way too expensive and I haven't been able to make the Firebelly quite work for me. So that's why I added the Hunter. He's also quite good at killing off stuff along the flanks with his Ring of Ruin. But let's move into another controversial choice, and that is my Gorger. And this guy actually got his points back in most of the games, and this is for a couple of reasons. One is that when he's arriving from ambush and charges from the rear while something else is charging from the front, the enemy can't flee because then the Gorger will actually catch them. So he had a lot of utility in this tournament, more than I actually expected him to have. So I was positively surprised, and I will likely play with at least 1 Gorger going forward. And finally we have my Mournfang Cavalry. So this is a very heavy unit and I'm a bit disappointed on them. They didn't quite get their points back in any of the games, and this is a bit surprising to me because they usually do quite well and score quite high, but maybe I played them wrong or maybe my opponents managed to avoid them. I still think it's a very good, aggressive, fast unit. So I would actually still take them going forward. So that was all of the units that I had in my army this time. And it's probably worth mentioning that I usually play with a Bruiser on Stonehorn. I think this is a quite cost-effective unit that is very resilient and then can take on big blocks of infantry because of its impact hits. But in this tournament I didn't quite have room for it and I decided to leave it at home. And that was all I had to show this time. I hope you enjoyed all of the games and I hope you will continue to watch this content. So thank you for watching and I will see you in the future.